Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly video on Quilling with Jess. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm so grateful to you being a part of the All Access tier of my Patreon. These weekly videos are one perk of that membership, and I'm so grateful that you've joined. I hope that you enjoy the class that we have today. Take your time, enjoy yourself, and be sure to jump back onto Patreon afterward to share a picture or any information about how it went, who you're giving it to, where you're displaying it. We'd love to share that with you. So continue to watch these weekly classes to kind of get more skills and more tips for paper quilling and paper art, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy crafting! Alright everybody, thank you for joining today. We are going to make this pair of daisy petals today. They're kind of a half daisy. I'm going to go through the whole process of showing you how to make each individual petal, the centers, and then also the jewelry pieces, how to get those all connected, and also the combination I like to use. So in the supply sheet that I sent you this week, you will have all the information for what length of strips you need for each of the petals, as well as what size split rings you're going to need. So go back and reference that. And then don't forget your hook. We also have our white glue bottle here. You see it has that thin tip that we've talked about in past videos that I really like, so that you have a lot more control. You can do a one dot at a time kind of deal, which today is going to be really important for these small pieces and small strips. I also am going to be definitely using this clear gel tacky glue. You can use the white glue to attach all the pieces together, but this is going to give you a lot more flexibility, time to mold them a little bit better if you like, and then they're really going to stick well, and the glue is going to dry really clear. So that's just a personal preference, but one that I would recommend. As always, we're going to have our slotted quilling tool. Mine still is this very thin slot, but I do have the example of a thicker one. This one I tend to use more for bigger beads that I want to be able to get a cord or string through. I may use that today on these beads here, just because it will make it easier to get that jewelry piece through, but I'm going to give you some pointers and tips on how to make that a bit easier. So that's another option. Another thing that you're going to definitely want to have today is a set of tweezers. As you can see, we're working with really small pieces, and we're wanting to get them in a certain space. So you're going to want to have those to cut down on getting paper stuck to your fingers, glue all over your hands. These are going to give you a lot more control. The next two things that I use for jewelry, and we'll go through these more when we get to that portion of the video, is these are different versions of pliers. These are definitely more jewelry centric. We have two cylindrical posts, and they're just there really easy to kind of get in there and mold the jewelry the way you need to go. I also personally have found a lot of success with these just generic pliers, and the reason for that is the teeth inside can make it a little bit more simple when you're closing the jewelry pieces from the outside. So from this side, just you have better control. It's not going to slip and move around. But like I said, I will show you that more in depth when we get there. All right. And then I have here my supply of split rings. You can see there's obviously one section here just a little bit smaller than what we're using today that I use a lot. Often I'm almost out. We're going to be using these today. The measurements are in your instructions, so I'll have you reference that. And then the smallest one that we're also going to use today is there for you. And then we are going to be using any color you like. My example here and the color that I'm going to use for class are the same. I'm going to use this white strip. These are 3 millimeters, which is pretty much what I would always recommend for earrings. They're just more dainty, more delicate, thinner size for earrings. You could use a thicker strip, such as a 5 millimeter, but it's going to be a notable difference and make it quite a bit chunkier. Now, if that's what you're going for, then that's fine. But personal preference for earrings for me is always this 3 millimeter. And then the center, I'm actually going to switch up for this here from the example. So the example here, you can see we've got black. And for this class demonstration, I'm going to go with a brown. Just kind of switch it up, a little bit different color for the same strip thickness, the 3 millimeter. So set those aside. And then the last thing that you are going to want to do, or going to want to have, is your circle sizer. The reason for this is we want all of our petals here to be about the same size, and so we are going to use this 9 millimeter circle here. We are going to learn how to use this slotted quilling tool. It is a tool that will be in every class that we ever have, so it's quite an important tool. And for our strips today, you'll notice on your instructions for supplies that it's half strips for each petal. So I'm going to go ahead and make this full strip into half just by tearing it. I'll set that other half aside. So now you have this half strip. If you want to be sure that your strip length is around the same, these are just over 18 centimeters, so probably closer to 19 centimeters in length for each half. All right. So now, the very basics of starting a coil. And anytime that we're twisting one of these papers up, we're going to refer to it as a coil, whether it's a tight coil where it doesn't open up at all, or a loose coil. And I'll show you what that means just now. So the slotted quilling tool has, as its name would suggest, this little slot in there. You can see mine a little bit on the camera. And so we can top load this paper strip. We don't have to needle thread it through. We can top load it. So you load it from the top. We'll leave a little bit of a tail up top. And then I like to have this longer tail come towards me. It just kind of gives me better control. It's not going to get tangled up in anything else I have on my table in front of me here. And then once you have that threaded through there, you're going to put your finger on the bottom and your thumb on the side. Not a death grip. We're not pinching it on there. You want to be in control of that hold there. Once you have that, you're going to go ahead and start turning it towards yourself. Go as fast or as slow as you feel comfortable while keeping that paper on there pretty well. We don't want it to get loose. We don't want it to be so tight that we rip it. We just want to be gentle but firm in our hold and in control. We're going to oil this entire strip, this entire half strip, so all the way to the bottom. And when we've gotten there, You see it's all pretty, oh, that'll happen sometimes where your pull will pop open if you don't keep a good hold on it. So once you get to the end, you'll see it's pretty tightly on there. This is what we'd call a tight foil if we glued it just now. We're not going to do that. We are going to grab this like a sandwich, like all stay together there. And we might have to push from the bottom. We want to pull it up by our slotted quilling tool and hold it just like that, an inch between your fingers. And then you're going to have your circle sizer right by you and find that 9 right there. We're going to take this coil and we're going to gently and carefully allow it to set it down inside the 9 and allow it to open up to the full size of that 9mm. Now it might jump out or it might just not fit in there really well, but do your best, get it to stay in there and open up. Once it's open, that's when we're going to want our needle tweezers. And the pickup method I like to use is to grab somewhere near the middle with one side and then grab on the outside with the other time. So that way you've got it here in your tweezers with your control, but you also are keeping it that same size as the 9mm. So you could set it back in there and it would just about fit. It might open up a little on the outsides, but you could get it right back in there. So now that we have that, you can glue it from here while holding it with the tweezers if you like. My preference is to shift it over to my other hand while keeping it that same size. And I'll grab my glue bottle and put a little dot of glue on there. It was probably, you can see that it was probably a little more than I normally want. So we'll try to do less in future petals, but that'll be all right. We can still. Once you've put that glue on there, I'm going to press that tail down against your circle so that it's glued all together in this nice little circle. The inside coils might look different for you than for mine. They might be tighter, they might be looser. That's okay because we're going to bend these, and so the shape won't matter so much at this point for the center pieces. Are you ready? I'm going to grab it with both hands. I like to pull the center to the side, and then we're going to pinch on the outside to create a teardrop shape. So there's our teardrop shape. And then you see here these petals are pointed on both ends, but it kind of looks like one side is a shorter pinch than another, and that's why we're going to do this. So we've got our longer pinch now. While we're pinching there, we're going to just gently pinch the other side. So it's not quite a marquee shape. It is a little bit more focused on one side. Right? So there is one. And we're going to do that 5 more times. All right. So there's all 6 petals. If you look at them closely, they're not all exactly the same, but they are all fairly similar, fairly the same. So they look very nice when you put them all together. Same deal when it comes to the length of your center strips. They're each going to be half strips. So I'm just going to go straight in and tear those in half. So now I have two shorter strips. And for the sake of our jewelry piece today, I am going to go ahead and use this bigger comb tool. Definitely not necessary. I made the other ones with the small, but also this would be a good example for you all using a different tool. So this one is very simple to load. You can see it very easily. Still gonna leave a little bit of that tail of the card. You don't need to, but it is a person reference. It gives the edge. Okay. Same technique. Gonna twist that towards yourself all the way to the bottom. And don't take it off the quilling tool when you get there. We are going to glue this while it's still on this tool. This is, we call it tight coating, which I mentioned before. Now, another thing that you'll notice is since I am using a thicker tool, my bead is going to be, my center here is going to be a little bit bigger than my example. So if I wanted, I could tear it off early, but I think it's still going to look nice, so I'm going to go with it. Alright, so when I get to the end, build it all the way up. I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to go straight in with that dotted glue. It's still here. Yeah, technique I like to use is once I roll it on, get that glue on there, I'm going to twist the whole thing between my fingers. And that does a few things. One, it makes me confident that the glue is really sticking on there before I take my fingers away and it explodes open. But it also squishes out a little bit of that glue, and then when you are wrapping your fingers around, it's kind of coating a little bit of that glue around, so it's a good thing. Same thing as before, we're going to go ahead and take that off now. However, now you see it is all glued together. Just this nice little bead. I'll do the second one just the same. I've laid this little piece of paper here because I don't want to get a bunch of glue on my mat. And so sometimes having a little backer when you're making earrings can be helpful. Just because there isn't anything you're gluing them to other than each other. So sometimes glue can kind of collect on the surface of your gluing earrings out. So lay all this out here. I'm going to go ahead and grab out the size of the rings that I need. We're going to put our quilling things aside because after we're done specifically quilling, we are just going to add in our jewelry. So here we are. I'm going to use these here. There's Virgil. So I want two large ones. And then I'm going to get two of this. And I'll show you why I like to do this. The reason I like to have the two of those before even the hook is I want these to hang a certain way. So when I have this larger ring going through the bead, and then the smaller one kind of gives a layer enough so that when it's worn this way, the design itself is going to face forward instead of to the side. Now, this is your ear here. If you don't mind that the design is facing away, then just use the large ring and omit the small one. Alright. Now you might think, wait, we have not glued the whole earring together. Why are we talking about the jewelry pieces yet? Well, I'll tell you a very hard learned lesson over and over and over as I kept thinking, why do these pieces not stay together? Like, how am I supposed to add these pieces if they keep coming apart when I put the jewelry together? I'm gonna omit that problem by attaching the jewelry pieces first and then gluing on all the petals after, so that way they can dry without having to be jumbled up by the jewelry pieces. So we've got our two sets of split rings, and we're gonna also lay out our two hooks. And this is the part where I really like to have the two tools at the same time. It really helps me to have some good control and not be trying to fold some of it with my fingers as much. I can really just focus on getting the tool to do its job. So if you look, these are called split rings because there is a split in the ring. A lot of these things are named very appropriately based on their simple functions, so that's helpful. All right, so we've got the large one here. I've got it between one tweezer and then gonna go ahead and use this other tweezer, pliers, I guess, to open it up. For this bead, it's kind of a thicker one, so I do want to open it up quite a ways. And we're just going to thread that in there. And then while that's still open, I'm going to put the smaller split ring on there and close it up. Right? Turn. Take our larger split ring, open it up, and our smaller split ring, and go ahead and close that. And now I'll put this tool aside because for the hook, I really just need this one. And I like this one because then when I go back to close it, it fits in there really well for closing. The generic pliers, the tine is just a little too big to really get it in there. All right, so we will open this up. You see there. Really try to keep this bead up higher because then when you go to close it, if it gets stuck in the hook loop there, it can be really difficult to get out, and you definitely can't close your earring very well. So now that we have that open, we're going to take one of our beads and we're going to put the small slotted or split ring onto the earring hook and then close it back up. We might have to adjust it just a little because these split rings really like to come off and you don't want to lose your earring gout somewhere. And place it to the side and do that one more time. Open it up. Put the small split ring on there and close back up. Mm. Okay, So now we are going to be able to put all this together. You might find that you have just a little bit of difficulty getting it to sit flat. So you can always put something underneath it. I'm just going to use my hands for now to try to mold it to stay together. I may actually just put this under here and just gives it a little bit of height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each individual petal and I'm going to be very diligent about where I'm putting my glue because I want it to do the work I need it to do without oversaturating it and without gluing it to the paper below, at least more than what's avoidable. So I'm just going to put a little glue on the tip here for this first one. And that's going to be my first anchor here. I have to hold down your centerpiece so that it'll hold flat. There we go. And we can play with this. So we're going right. That's the nice thing about using this clear glue. We've got a little bit of play to it. Okay, there's our first one. Now for the second one, we're talking about being diligent and intentional with our glue placement. We want to get this petal to stick to the one next to it, as well as the center. So we're going to put a little on the tip of the petal and then a little on the side. This one, gonna carefully put that right to the center. You might have to use your hands here just to try to get those really to lay flat and to lay together. Alright. Now, if you really are just having too many issues and it's just too frustrating, you absolutely can glue this all together first and then wait quite a long time, probably half hour or more for the glue to dry and then put the jewelry pieces on if you really don't want to hassle with trying to get them to lay a certain way. But for the purpose of this class, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way so that way you are not having to wait or speed through to. Right. So there's our first one. First little petals on there. You can kind of adjust them around if you like. So like I said, would your preference? And then the biggest thing, earrings especially. Not always as much with cards, not always as much with fingers or, other artworks. The earrings especially, we're gonna push them together, make sure that they're where we want them, and then I'm not gonna pick this up right now. I'm not gonna lift it and try to move it around. I'm gonna leave it. So I'll go to our next one. I'm using this set of pliers to lift up these hooks makes it a little bit more doable for the feeds to lay later. They're not perfect because they're still for the splitting, but they just stay a little better. So that's a helpful tip for you if you like. We're gonna go ahead and just glue these exactly the same as last time. So just on the tip for this first one, and just glue it right down. So yeah, there's definitely give and take to not gluing it first. So it's definitely up to you, whatever you prefer. Alright, this one we're gonna do the tip and then the side. And pull that down. And then I come in there and just pinch them together a little. And the last one. Put it on the side. Now on the tip. Glue it down to the center. And this is a good time to put your tweezers down and try to squeeze your fingers a little better.
There you have it. Some adorable little daisy earrings to enhance any of your outfits or hairstyles. They're really lightweight, and just remember to keep them dry. Wait to put them on when your hair is dry. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for joining me as an All Access patron. It truly means the most. I hope to see you in future videos and live streams. Happy crafting!